Okay, here we are in the 3 Ds of prioritization. So this is section 1 of module 5. And I just wanted to briefly, before we get into the slides, just kind of mention something that might resonate with you a little bit. But I know that this happened for me, is that when I started feeling like everything was a high priority, that everything was important, there could be a tendency, there was for me, to tighten, which basically means that the more everything seemed urgent, the more that reinforced itself, right? More things felt urgent all at once. I just kept tightening and tightening and trying to get more and more control over everything that was happening. And it ended up feeling more and more stressful as time goes on. So notice if that's something that you do as well, that as soon as you start feeling like the whole world is on your shoulders, that weight gets heavier and heavier and heavier, the more that you feel like you have to take responsibility for everything. So in this section, we're going to be covering sort of how to loosen up, release that tightening, discover what's, some more options are for you as far as the priorities go. So the first D is to delegate, right? So you've heard this one before, that you should probably delegate, and it can be tough to ask for help, right? I'm not saying that it's easy to do this right away, but I know that it is a tendency to think, if I don't do this, nobody else will, because if people don't do things in the time that you want them to, or, in the way that you want them to, that you just have to take control of everything. And if you're somebody who has also just done things for people as soon as they've asked, then they'll get used to you just doing things. And yeah, so then that will be true, that if you don't do it, nobody will, because they're always going to expect you to do it. So you need to ask for help. You can't assume that they know. They don't know usually, right? If you just kind of seem like you're managing everything, then they're going to let you do that. So make sure that you are making the request directly. And this is also true even if you have to repeat yourself a million times, because it might be the same task that you're asking somebody to do over and over and over again. And it feels really frustrating. And you're like, oh my gosh, how many times do I have to tell them to do this, right? They should already know. And so you get really angry and upset and end up just giving up and not saying anything because you assume, again, that they should know. But truly, you could just save so much time and energy by asking calmly every single time, even if it's every day, even if it's a million times a day. That is better than, feeling all of the anger and the stress behind what you're asking for. And you might have to be okay with waiting for it to take a little bit longer for them to do the thing that you hope that they will do, right? Or you can clarify the guidelines and the expectations. So if you have to repeat yourself a million times, you can say it calmly. You can say, hey, I would like some help. Could you please do the dishes, right? That might be one example. Could you please do the dishes? And could you please have them done by 3 o'clock today, right? You can be very, very direct with what it is. And then also make them aware, if this is we know that children don't always follow what we want. They'll always push our boundaries, they'll always test all of that. So you may have to also enforce, if this isn't done by 3 o'clock, then there will be a consequence to that. And whatever that consequence is, you have to be ready to follow through when that's not done, so that they know that you're serious. And when you ask for help, that you mean it, and you're not just going to let them get away with it, right? So you have to be very, very clear, even if you feel like they should know all of it, even if you said it all before. Just always ask, always be clear. If there's some kind of a miscommunication, perhaps ask how you could be more clear next time, and really just you can keep this in a calm level and not get yourself all stressed out about it. And you might need to also release control of how things need to be done. So it might not be, that they're not doing it in the time frame you want, but sometimes, again, with me, this is a personal example where there would be things like, wow, it's just better if I do it myself because you don't do it the way that I want it to be done. But there's a lot of different ways that you can do things, right? And there's not one perfect way, although we feel like there is not one perfect way to load a dishwasher, right? We all have our way that we like doing it, and that's fine, but just let somebody else do it the way that they see fit and allow them to have the freedom to do things in the way that they want to do it, and just work on releasing that control of knowing it has to be done a certain way, because it's better if somebody else can just do something and help you out than having to jump in and feel like, again, that responsibility is all on your shoulders because you're the only one who does it perfectly, right? So also, and a final thought on delegating is to make sure that you show gratitude when people do help you, even if you've asked a million times, even if they didn't do it the way that you wanted to. Be grateful for their assistance, right? There can be a lot of good positive reinforcement to this method. And I've heard it a lot, and you might resonate with example like this as well, but is that sometimes, women in particular, I will say that I've seen this from, but they get really frustrated because, their spouse or, their husband might do something and not want to, or he might do something and then expect a medal or, expect a lot of congratulations and make a big deal out of it because he did this one simple task that you might have been doing every day for years. And suddenly, he wants this big celebration for him. And I hear a lot of women that get mad about this and get upset because they're like, well, where's the gratitude for me? Like every time that I do it, whatever, it's just what I do. But all of a sudden he does it and he needs, this big award ceremony, right? But the thing is that you will get more, I would say, more out of who you're asking for help from, and you'll just have a better relationship if you show gratitude. It's okay to show gratitude for somebody doing something. Like, you don't have to throw the big party or anything like that, but it's okay to say thank you and to not be mad or upset about them wanting to feel appreciated, right? Everybody wants to feel appreciated. So perhaps if you're open to this and you do appreciate them more, then they can also appreciate you more. Or you could even ask for that. You could ask for more appreciation when you do things, and that could just really help. But the positive reinforcement really can work. Don't be afraid to say thank you, to offer that love, to offer the gratitude and the appreciation. It really can go a lot further than you think that it will. So the second one is to drop it, right? So you might be able to drop some tasks on your to-do list that are taking up a ton of energy, but don't actually need to be done, right? So what are you having on your to-do list? Are there projects that you can decide that you just don't want to do, right? That maybe it's creating a lot of negative energy. And, there's just so many other things that can take priority in that moment that you just don't have to do it. Like, I think I heard the example of somebody who thought it was really, really important to wash their walls all the time, like once a week or something like that. And it's just, when you think about that, like, is that really an important thing? And all of the other things that you want to get done in a day, the other, things that you want to prioritize in your life, maybe quality time with your family or good self-care time for yourself. Who cares if your walls are perfectly clean every week, right? Like, how many projects, or maybe like vacuuming curtains. I hear of people who do that kind of stuff a lot. Now, yeah, maybe it's not a drop completely, but maybe drop it right now, right? It's just not important if you have a lot of other stressful things that are going on. So just think about that. Go through the list. What are the things that don't actually need to be done, right? And also, we've talked about this already. Have you overbooked yourself? Have you, created too many activities and too many things in your life that are creating more stress than they are creating value, right? So consider what you can cancel. What can you get rid of off the calendar? What can you stop doing? And also, have you over volunteered? So not just activities that you've created, but do you say yes to everything? Every time that somebody needs help, do you jump in and say that you can do it and that you can help them with it, even though you're already supremely stressed out by so many other things that are going on in your life, right? So start paying attention to that and learn to either say no if they directly ask and you're already very overwhelmed, or cancel prior yeses in order to do this thing, right? Make sure that you're not just loading on and loading on and loading on without dropping some of the other things that are also taking up time. So you might have to shift your priorities. You might have to figure out what's really important to you and then drop off the things that just aren't creating any value in your life. And you have to pay attention too that when you're over volunteering or when you're naturally jumping in, sometimes what we might have a tendency to do is to jump in even when somebody hasn't asked for help yet. Like they just might be sort of saying something that they're stressed out about. So then you want to try to save them. So you jump in and you volunteer to help, even though they haven't asked for it. And then they might take you up on it because they didn't even think to ask, but now you're offering, right? But maybe it would be better if they could take care of whatever it is themselves, right? We've already talked about this, that everybody has their own, lot in life, their own path that they have to follow. And so doing this thing or facing the struggle that they're facing might be exactly what they need in this life to learn what they need to learn. So hesitate sometimes, take a pause and just try to determine if somebody could do something themselves, right? So it might feel uncomfortable, it might feel strange, but just remember that you're just creating new ways of behaving and new ways of doing things, and that it might help everyone in the long run. So the third D is to do it later. So does everything need to be done right now? Is everything really, really, really that important right now? And the answer is usually no. There's a lot of stuff on the to-do list that you can probably move forward, right? And they can wait. Be honest about this. Watch for the tightening response and watch for the idea too that like, well, I'm never going to have time because life is always like this. No, life goes in cycles. There are times when you're going to be busier. There are times when you're not going to be. So take a look again at that calendar. We kind of went through these exercises, right? And just see what can wait, what can be pushed off into the future. And when you do determine that, put them on a future list, or maybe even plan a date or a time. Set a reminder if there's something that you're like, yeah, I don't actually have to do this now, but I would like to have it done by November. Maybe, you just set a time when you would like to have it done because maybe there's a particular reason why, but set a reminder on your phone, or, have a separate to-do list somewhere for, on a rainy day kind of project or that sort of thing. And plan for it later on so that it sort of resolves from your brain, right? It comes off of that to-do list and you know that you will take care of it. It just doesn't need to be done right now, right? On the other hand, if you are procrastinating something like over and over and over again, and you just know that you really, really do want to do it and you want to honor it, then you may have to kind of face like, why are you procrastinating it? Are you making it more difficult than it has to be? That kind of thing. That's a whole different topic that you could dive into. But for now, we're just going to call this a to-do later scenario. On the other hand, there might be some things that doing them now might actually benefit you, right? So this isn't a matter of a big project or something that's super stressing you out, but sometimes there are tasks that you can take care of daily really, really quickly so that they aren't big, giant projects later that will add up, right? There's sometimes that things that can pile up and it just seems way, way bigger and overwhelming and way more than it has to be, right? So it might be just like 2 minutes today could save you 2 hours on a different day. And I think of things like some of the examples that I do is when we do our laundry, we literally do just a load of laundry at any time that it exists and needs to be done, right? So we don't wait until there's 3 or 4 loads of laundry piled up and then we have to make it a whole day long project to take care of all the laundry and get through it. Now, you might create a lot of laundry. There might be a lot of laundry in your house that comes up all the time, and you just, I guess, have to just kind of keep up with it. I once heard of somebody who had like 15 loads of laundry or something like that were sitting there, where maybe even 2 loads a day or something like that could have helped to mitigate and not make that such a giant project. Oops. So, think of things like that. Also, in our shower, we have hard water, so we tend to get a lot of stains in the tub and things like that. So we have put a magic eraser inside the shower, and now every time that I notice something starting to creep up, I literally take 5 seconds and wipe that area down so that it just stays clean all the time, so that it saves me from having to do a huge 2-hour shower cleaning at some point if we let it get too far out of control. And it's so much easier to do that regular maintenance and to save that stress and that pressure. And that's a lot of other tasks and things around the house that you could probably get creative with and say, okay, if I can literally just take 2 minutes in the morning or 2 minutes at night before I go to bed to just take care of this one little thing so that it doesn't mount up later, it'll so be worth it, right? So there is a worksheet available for you in the Kajabi portal here. So it's the delegate, drop, and do later worksheet, which will help you sort through and put things into different buckets, help you make some decisions here on what you can do. And also feel free to come into the community if you're really struggling with anything, share your thoughts, and maybe ask for some advice or how, other people have done certain things, and just help each other out there. All right, I will see you in the next video where we will talk about how to fill your time.